All right, let's talk about Quarkus. You've probably heard the tagline, Supersonic, Subatomic Java. Sounds pretty cool, right? But what does that actually mean? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. But before we can really get into what makes Quarkus so special, we've got to take a step back. We need to understand the problem it was designed to fix. And that problem, well, it's what you could call Java's cloud conundrum. Look, for years, Java has been an absolute giant in the world of enterprise software. I mean, it's robust, it's scalable, and the ecosystem is just massive. But then, the world changed. Everything started moving to the cloud, to containers, to serverless, and a really tough question started popping up. Is the traditional Java we all know and love just too heavy for this modern world? And here's the heart of the problem, right? The classic Java frameworks, they were built for a totally different time. They often have these slow startup times and just gobble up a lot of memory. But the cloud wants the exact opposite. It needs lightning-fast startup for things like serverless and scaling, and it needs a tiny memory footprint so you can pack more into your containers and keep your costs down. You can see the clash right there. So that leads to a fascinating what-if question. What if you could keep all the amazing things about Java, the standards, the huge library ecosystem, all that developer knowledge, but rebuild it from the ground up, specifically for the cloud? Well, that's exactly the idea behind Quarkus. It's not a new language, it's Java, completely reimagined. So you'll hear this term a lot with Quarkus, Kubernetes native. And you might be thinking, okay, what does that buzzword really mean? Well, it means it was built from day one with containers and Kubernetes in mind. This is a key point. It's not just compatible with Kubernetes, like something that was retrofitted, it's optimized for it. The whole thing is designed to make your life as a developer in that environment way, way easier. And this really shows the world that Quarkus was made for. You've got your application, right? It's living inside a container, and that container is being managed by something big like Kubernetes. Quarkus is designed to be the perfect resident inside that container, a really good citizen, you know? It uses as few resources as possible and plays nicely with the platform managing it. Okay, so how on earth does Quarkus pull this off? How does it get so fast and so small? This is where the real magic happens. It's all about something called the build time revolution. This quote, this is it. This is the core idea of Quarkus. The big secret is shifting as much work as possible away from runtime when your app is starting up and moving it to build time when you're compiling your code. This is the fundamental change. It changes everything about how the application behaves. So let's really dig into what that means. Think about a traditional Java app. When you hit start, it has a ton of stuff to do, right? It has to scan the class path, parse all the config files, figure out its dependencies, build up its internal models. It's like deciding to cook a big dinner and having to go to the store, chop all the vegetables, and measure everything out every single time. The Quarkus way completely flips that. It does all that heavy lifting, the shopping, the chopping, the measuring at build time. So when it's time to run, your application is like a perfectly prepped meal kit. All you have to do is fire it up. And that's why it's so incredibly fast. And this diagram kind of shows you the tools that make all that magic possible. See that build tooling layer? You've got things in there like Jandex and Gizmo. Think of them as the super smart chefs doing all the prep work. Jandex scans everything ahead of time to make an index, and Gizmo generates super optimized code. They're doing all that tough work of figuring out dependencies and configuring frameworks before your app even thinks about running. So the final application that gets deployed, it's already pre-wired and just ready to go. All right, so we've seen the how. Now let's get to the what. What's the payoff for all this build time cleverness? This is where we see those taglines come to life. Supersonic, Subatomic, and, believe it or not, super fun. First up, supersonic speed. And it really is supersonic. Because all that work is done ahead of time, when your app gets the signal to start, it has almost nothing to think about. It just goes. So how fast is fast? We're talking startup times in tens of milliseconds. No, seriously, that is not a typo. Tens of milliseconds. For things like serverless functions or quickly scaling up in the cloud, that's an absolute game changer. Okay, next up, subatomic size. Because so much has been figured out at build time, the running application is incredibly lean. The memory footprint is just tiny. And what does that mean for you? Well, it means you can cram way more instances of your app onto the same server, which means your cloud bill goes down. It's not just about being efficient, it's about saving real money. But here's the thing, it's not just about speed and size. Quarkus is also built to make your life as a developer better. I mean, the dev mode alone is amazing. You make a code change and it's live, like instantly. No more waiting for redeploys. Plus, you're not throwing out everything you know.
It's built on familiar stuff like Jakarta EE and Hibernate, and it lets you mix and match programming styles, whether you're into imperative or reactive. It's designed to be a joy to work with.
So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, this all sounds amazing, but it must be super complicated to get started, right? And the answer is nope, not at all. And that's maybe one of its best features. So let's take a look at just how easy it is to get your first Quarkus app off the ground.
It really is as simple as 1, 2, 3. You just pop over to the website, you pick the features you want, they call them extensions, and then you click Generate. And boom, you have a starter project ready to go. You can literally go from zero to coding in just a couple of minutes. And that website, code.quarkus.io, is just fantastic. It's this super clean interface where you can just tick the boxes for what you need. Need a database? Check. Need messaging? Check. You pick your build tool, you grab the extensions you want, and it packages everything up for you. You download the zip, and you are ready to rock.
And that really brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? For decades, Java has been incredibly resilient, always adapting. But Quarkus forces it to ask something more profound. If you had a blank slate today and your goal was to build the perfect Java for a world of clouds, containers, and serverless, what would you build? I think after everything we've seen, the answer might look an awful lot like Quarkus.